This podcast, and actually my business, wouldn't be as pretty if it weren't for our friends from MusicBed. Find the perfect song for your films with a highly curated roster featuring hundreds of artists, bands, and composers. As a Wedding Bossness listener, you could get your first month of subscription free or 20% off of a single song purchase. Just enter the promo code Wedding Bossness when you check out, or just click on the link in the show notes. Hey Gordon, thanks for being on the show.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate this because I've been subscribing to you, just like what we talked about earlier. I've been subscribing to your email list for at least a year now, probably two, and it's been really helpful for me. It really pushed me to just go ahead and do the podcast because it.
You're one of my many victims. Okay, cool. Thank you.
I don't know if it's a victim, but maybe, yeah. So before we start, I would love you to tell the listeners and the viewers something about yourself that they probably wouldn't know.
Well, one of them is that when I was little, I had red hair, big head of red curly hair. For those that are listening and not seeing, I am a shaved head, bald guy now. And it's interesting. A little funny story about that is I also, I guess the real thing that people probably don't know is that as a kid, I played clarinet and saxophone reasonably well, not badly, but not well. Let's put it that way. And when I was growing up, there was a book called Gordon and the Glockenspiel, and it was about a kid who had this curly head of red hair and was trying to pick what musical instrument to play. And there's it's this children's book illustrated with pictures of this redheaded kid playing the clarinet and the saxophone, and he ends up picking the glockenspiel. But anyway, so that's my funny little story about my musical career.
Hey, that's cool. You know, I don't know if you've ever looked into, this is probably going to be a weird fact, but I've always been interested in people with red hair, and because they're saying that it's one of the rarest kinds of right. So they're saying that it just came from this one island somewhere, and they're probably like all related to each other or something. I don't know if you've looked into it. I don't know if you've looked into it, but I feel like it's just so weird that it's,
Yeah, there's a high concentration of redheads in Scandinavia and northeastern Europe and that kind of stuff, and that is where my family seems to come from. So,
see? It might be true, but probably not related to each other, but it's just one area. That's cool. And then when you got into musical instruments, whenever I talk to people and they say that they know how to play an instrument, it always intimidates me because I always feel that people that can do that are like really, really smart, because I don't have the patience for that. My attention span is so short. I can't. Yeah. So
I was never great at it, but my dad actually played professionally before he went to medical school, and
exactly
like that, right? And so it was in my blood a little bit, but yeah,
that's amazing.
It's a thing.
So I would love to know what your origin story is, like how you got into what you're doing now, and what are you? Do you have anything upcoming in the future?
Oh, lots of stuff. So as you already know, I'm a theater and entertainment and media lawyer, and I work with lots of folks in those fields, and also online business and folks that are running whatever their business is online and involving media and intellectual property and those kinds of things. And I got involved and interested in the theater actually as a very young child. At age 5, I was in kindergarten at a K through 12 school in the Boston area, and they brought the kindergarten kids in to watch the dress rehearsal of the high school production of Oliver. And I sat down, and the lights came on, and the curtains opened up, and I was hooked. I was sucked into that environment, and it never let go of me. So I went off to college and studied. Started as a theater major, went into radio, TV, and film, and during that I picked up an aptitude for the legal and regulatory stuff. So here I am doing entertainment, media, intellectual property law. Actually had an experience in college where a screenplay I had written was misused by someone involved in the school who had access to it, and that got me interested in copyright law. And so there's the thread. Going to law school and now, as well as practicing in this field, I also teach entertainment and media law. And I have online courses for online business owners and so on. And recently, I've gotten into helping people get out of their own way, coaching and training people on a system of personal effectiveness, an achievement program essentially called Personal Effectiveness Formula. That really exciting. I've helped a few people in the entertainment and media industries, and one's a magician, a couple of producers, a couple of writers, that kind of folk, all take their businesses to the next level.
So, talk to me more about that personal effectiveness formula that you have, because it's really like I'm really curious about that.
Well, what goes on with a lot of people, especially people in the artistic area, who are have that creative mind. I never remember which is which, left brain or right brain, but the ones with that brain that is the more artistic, they tend to again, broad generalization, but they tend to focus on the art and exclude or neglect the business side of things. And also they tend to focus on go for the shiny object, go for the thing that is going to bring me the gratification, whether it's an audience response or, people saying, ooh, that's neat, or, whatever it is about the work that they've done, the creative work. And let's face it, that's why you go into performance or production kinds of things, is you want to show off a little bit in your creativity. But what happens is people tend to lose focus of the long range goal. And so my personal effectiveness formula program is really designed to help people figure out who they are and why they want what they want as those long-term goals, and then develop a system and a way of staying on track, staying on point and focused with every action they take being aligned with their purpose, their mission, their values, and taking them another step toward the goal. And what happens is that when you stay focused and you don't get distracted and you don't, go in 1,000 directions, you make progress pretty quickly, and the momentum builds, and each step gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you find yourself achieving your goals faster than you thought was possible.
Yeah, I think whenever because with people in the wedding industry, we have seasons, right? So whenever it gets to the slow season and then it starts to pick back up, the few times, just like I'm pretty sure everyone else, the few times you need to get into the groove, to have that thing, with weddings, you can't really experiment or try to like get into the groove while you're actually working, because this is like a one-time thing. We can never say like, hey, do that again, or so I feel like having that formula would probably help a lot of people to stay, I guess. Let me know what you think, but just to stay motivated and focused.
Right. We talk a lot about getting into the zone, as I call it, or the groove that you're talking about. And performers especially have to think about this, because you step out on stage, you don't have time to warm up in front of that audience. Your job is to get out there and be 110% the moment the light comes on, or whatever, in front of the camera or whatever. And I think the same is true for the creative person behind the camera, or who's whatever it is you're doing. You don't want to warm up on the audience's time or on the customer's time. And so finding ways to set up triggers to get you into the mindset and into that zone quickly as you arrive at work, as you arrive at the wedding venue, or maybe even beforehand. And, look, I'm an advocate of meditation and mindfulness and finding gratitude in everything we experience. And those are great techniques to help just get yourself centered and grounded so that you can hit the ground running as soon as you arrive on location or whatever it is you're doing.
I have a confession to make, because I love my clients to death, but whenever we get back-to-back weddings, or sometimes it just drains you, and you forget that, oh crap, they could see me, that I'm like, so I always try to put on this it's kind of like being in theater, putting on this persona and saying, hey, you kind of like have to exert a certain amount of effort just to look like you're normal.
One trick that I advocate in that scenario is when you find yourself getting into that space where you're sort of, maybe not unexcited about the project, but you're running out of steam. You've got an energy drain. A little bit of give yourself 5 minutes, accept how you're feeling, say to yourself, yes, I'm feeling this and it's okay, but I'm bigger than this. I can do this. And then give yourself a couple of moments to just breathe and chill out and imagine energy just pouring into you through your pores or something like that. And then, snap out of it and go back to work and do the next wedding or whatever it is. It's really interesting how you mind over matter. Your body can snap back into the zone. And again, getting into the zone, when you're there, time goes by really fast. You're doing work that you care about and that energizes you. And it's great.
Yeah. I've been doing this for 10 years and I gotta be honest, like a day before the shoot at night, I still get nervous and I could barely sleep. And whenever I wake up in the morning, I'm a huge advocate of meditation and mindfulness. Yeah. So every morning when I wake up, I put my headphones on, play my meditation yoga music, and then I go to the bathroom. But that's where I meditate, and it always helps me because I guess my anxiety and I've always been like that before, but then like a few years ago I started to get into it, and I feel like it really has helped. So
and that nervousness that you feel is a good sign. It means that you care about the work you're doing and you want to do your best. When you stop feeling nervous and you start just phoning it in, that's when it's time to reevaluate what you're doing.
Actually, you're right, because there was a time where I was like, "Oh, I could do this tomorrow. It's okay. It's so easy." Although
confidence is different from cockiness or just apathy.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good to know. So, okay, I want to ask you before we get into like the meat of what we're going to talk about. I want to ask you, what common mistakes do you see small businesses do when it comes to everything like organizing and marketing?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take it to the common mistake that I see small business owners doing. Small businesses, let's face it, they are their owners. The owners are them in most instances. The biggest mistake I see is owners working in the business more than on the business. And by that, I mean, when you're in there slogging away at getting the output, getting the work product done, whatever it is your business does, when you're busy getting that stuff, the deliverables done, you may lose track or lose sight of the bigger picture and how this is moving toward your goals. If you want your business to grow, you have to spend time on the things that make your business grow, not just doing good work. Because let's face it, there's always going to be somebody out there, if you're a wedding videographer, somebody else out there who can shoot the wedding. And you could hire that person so you can focus on marketing your business or improving your systems and processes so that things go faster and smoother and easier, and expanding your team and those kinds of things. So work on the business at least as much as you do in the business, and really remind yourself that you are that you're the business owner, not an employee of the business, and not to be afraid essentially to staff the business so you can focus on the things that maximize value for you, your goal as the owner. Now, if you love getting out and shooting weddings, then great, go out and shoot weddings. But maybe you hire somebody to handle sales or to handle the back end stuff in the office so you can focus on whatever your sweet spot, your zone of genius is, and get that stuff, get the system streamlined so that it operates almost without you tinkering with it all the time.
When we started the business, it's been our constant plan was to have like a bigger team, just so we could be at two places at one time, and it's been working really well. But you still have those hiccups, and there's still the falls are harder.
Oh yeah,
as opposed to when you're by yourself. But I feel like delegation is the one thing that me and my wife have learned when it comes to running a business.
A lot of business owners make the mistake of not hiring and not delegating because they feel like they're not ready, because it's going to slow them down first, I got to train people, I got to show them the ropes, I got to whatever. The fact of it is you're never going to move past the roadblocks until you hire those people. And oftentimes once you do, yes, you slow down first to speed up, but then you find yourself speeding up in a way that you never even imagined was possible. So, another pointer for business owners is don't be afraid to be careful and mindful about it, but don't be afraid to grow your team by hiring some back end support, whatever it is you need, so you're not responsible for getting everything done.
So when it comes to hiring, I'm going to go a little bit off track,
Yeah.
but when it comes to hiring, I feel like the one thing we've discovered was it's so hard to look for the perfect person to work for you. And not everyone is going to be an A player. Some's going to be a B player or C player. How do you feel about who to hire? Like how businesses should do that?
Well, there's a couple things here. One is you do have to train people. If you've developed good systems that make a lot of the processes and tasks that you have to get done a no-brainer. Just follow the checklist, do what you're told, follow the instructions. You don't have to have all A players on your team. Obviously, you want people who care about their work and are going to do their best, but you don't have to have. It doesn't have to be a team of all stars. Let's face it. The stars on a team need support from utility players. Let's call them right. So, same thing goes in a business. The other thing is there's a principle in hiring and managing employees is hire slowly and fire fast. So be careful about hiring, but then if someone's not working, get rid of them. Now, there's a flip side to that, and that is, hire somebody, train them, and then expect that they're going to make some mistakes. And those mistakes are part of their training, because let's face it, when someone makes a mistake and you call them in and you say, hey, this is what happened. It was a mistake, they may expect to get fired, but when you keep them on, you say, look, I've just invested the cost of this mistake in your training. Stick around, and I know it's not going to happen again. Then, of course, the implication is if it does continue to happen, then you fire fast. So it's a balancing act. You have to choose people carefully, and don't keep people on the team that are a waste of time, energy, money, and resources. But you do have to invest.
Okay, thank you. So the thing is, my main concern is the wedding industry is a really small group. Even though there's like so much work around here, it's still a tight knit group that you can't be. I don't know. I just feel like everyone knows each other, and when you fire people, it just sometimes they don't go into the wedding industry anymore. Some of them stay, and that's just a little tricky for me. But yeah,
I think it depends on the level of people that you're hiring. If you're hiring an office assistant, it doesn't matter whether they're good in the industry. The fact of it is they're an office person. If you're hiring a videographer or or maybe an editor or something like that, you definitely want to hire more thoughtfully so that you know that you're getting somebody who's going to be on the team and be able to manage and things. But you're also training your competition, because these people don't stick around for forever and they go out on their own eventually. So you have to accept that it's part of the territory. And look, as long as you go in with the mindset that there's enough out there in the ocean, enough fish in the sea for everybody, you're going to be fine.
I always have this idea that everyone that goes through the company we're training people to be leaders. So whenever they leave, we're like, the best of luck to you. Or whenever we part ways and we feel like it's going to be better for them, then we always try to support people, which is, it's hard to do, but you always try to wish them the best and make sure it's from the heart.
Right.
So, okay, now that we've got that out of the way, that people know what the mistakes are, I really wanted to talk to you about this, because I've just like what you said earlier, I got this email a year ago and I really wanted to attend this webinar, but I couldn't. So I know that you're going to relaunch it, but if we could get into it a little bit, let's talk about the 7 success strategies of top performers in the creative business.
Well, as you said, the last time I did this webinar was, I think, August of, no, it's a little later than that, September of 2018.
Not
so
too
it's
bad
been a while.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a webinar program that I created called 7 Success Strategies of Top Performing Creative Business People. And you're putting me a little on the spot, because I haven't looked at the content of that webinar in all these months. But the basic things that you need to remember is having a vision and a clarity about who you are and why you're going where you're going. And then that mindfulness and gratitude, the things we've already talked about today. These are all some of the strategies. Getting good help, getting coaching if you need coaching, if you need a personal. Look, let's face it. If you're going to go to the Olympics, you're going to have a coach and a personal trainer, and the same should be true in any venture that you go into. You put in the time and the effort, but having outsiders helping you is not something to be timid about. All the biggest successes, look, you think about sports athletes, right? The successful ones, they have great coaches that they work with, and they work on it every day. They practice. Those are the kinds of success strategies. And again, I'm not remembering the whole webinar in its order, but those are the kinds of things I advocate. And it's all part of getting to the point where you are operating at peak effectiveness.
So now I want to ask you, since, ever since social media started to get into the main, like social media now is the main avenue for advertising. Like the magazines don't work anymore. I feel like that's what it is. It's the magazines don't work anymore. Blogs don't have as much impact if they're not on social media. So how do you feel about businesses who are skipping social media? Like how do you feel about that when they're like trying to just stick to what they have right now?
Well, I think that there are some businesses where social media just isn't the right tool for reaching your audience. If you are, a doctor who specializes in geriatrics and old people who, may not use the internet, and even that is changing. But, if your ideal client is in their 80s, they aren't thinking about what to tweet and how to use Instagram and reading Facebook. They may still be going to the internet and using blogs and Google searches and seeing ads in other areas. But I think otherwise, if you're looking for a young-ish audience of people, teens through their 30s and 40s at least, I think social media, if you're not using it, you're leaving money on the table. You're missing out on the biggest opportunity. It's like, in previous days, as you said, you would advertise in magazines and newspapers and yellow pages and those kinds of things. And if you weren't advertising there, then you were leaving money on the table as well. You were not investing in the things you need to do to grow your business. So nowadays, I think, targeted social media, and one of the great things about advertising on social media, and also just using social media organically, is you can really target your audience. The interest in the stuff you talk about will define your audience. And then when you hit them with a marketing message, it's going to people who care. If you advertise on television, you're sending your message to millions and millions of people, a very small fraction of whom might be interested in what you're selling. When you're talking to your social media audience of followers and building that following based on giving them good stuff that they're interested in, you're talking about mostly people who care about what you're doing, and it's a different game. So I definitely encourage.
Okay. I feel like I just realized this, that the hardest part about being in business and getting into social media is there's so many out there, and just it's so hard to stand out. And I don't know if you have any advice for people who would want to stand out. To what should they do to be able to stand out? But before you even think about what your answer is, I'd love to quickly thank our friends from HoneyBook. HoneyBook is a CRM, which stands for Customer Relationship Management System, and that software helps us manage and organize our customers' data. Clients always comment on how fast we respond to their inquiries. Since HoneyBook is one of the only small business CRMs that has an app, we get an alert every time someone fills out our contact form, and then we are able to send them a brochure right away. It all boils down to the customer experience. The more you make it easy for them the more comfortable they will be in handing you their money. By eliminating that part of your business, you get to have your life back. And your clients will get the experience that they deserve. Win-win. So if you use my referral link, you'll get 50% off on your first year. That's not all. I really want you to succeed. So once you become a member through us, you'll be getting a 30-minute phone call to answer your questions about anything, your business or HoneyBook. Just click on the links in the show notes. I'm so sorry. What was your answer to my question?
It's a great question. First of all, I think you definitely have to stand out. And one way to stand out is to be a little controversial, be a little different from everybody else in your market. But also, I think narrowing and defining your market really narrowly. So if you're great at certain kinds of weddings or certain kinds of events, then say so and own it. You don't want to be the wedding videographer for every wedding everywhere. You want to be the one who specializes in same-sex marriages of people in their 80s, whatever it is. Being that narrow allows you to really own a market space, a segment of market, and be the big fish in a very small pond. So you're essentially defining the size of your pond first, and then owning it and being a big fish. And you can have multiple ponds that you market in, to torture this metaphor a little further, and just again, be a little controversial, a little different, shocking, whatever it is, and get attention that way. But also, paid advertising, targeted marketing in that area allows you, look, if you know that you can spend a certain number of dollars in order to get a client and still remain profitable, then spend those dollars as much as possible and get as many clients, so you can get attention by standing out, or you can get attention by spending, and both of them are viable strategies.
As long as you focus, right?
I think, I mean, right. When you're advertising, you got to target exactly who you want. Let's face it. If you're in the wedding business, there are two classes of weddings, right? There are first weddings where the people are probably in their 20s mostly, and there are second or later in life weddings where the people are probably in their mid 30s and up. So you can target those two markets separately with different kinds of messages, because let's face it, 18-year-old girl and her 21-year-old boyfriend who's, just joined the military, and that may be another thing to think about, is really identifying the demographics of who you want to work with. They're interested in a very different set of things. They want it to be beautiful, and they want a really high quality video and all that, but they also want to have a great fun time with the wedding and their friends and really showcase the party, those kinds of things. Whereas maybe an older couple might be more interested in really showcasing the depth and strength of the love between them, and maybe the blending of families and those kinds of things. And so, a videographer who promotes their business, or anybody in the wedding business who sort of is good at incorporating those elements, can market that to them. And so different messages.
Okay, so you're saying focus on one area, but you could do that separately. Like, sorry. So you're saying focus on one niche, but you could do multiple. Is that what you're saying? Like, you could just make sure the message is different.
Well, again, if you have to know what you're good at and what you really like doing. So if you like those younger couple weddings, which frankly the budgets might be lower for the younger couple than I don't know. You'd have to do your analysis.
It's usually lower.
Yeah. So you've got a lower budget for the wedding there. So you're going to do a different kind of service and a different level of of whatever, and maybe fewer shots, and whatever else it is. If you figure out that that's where your sweet spot is, then focus on that. But if you also do a great job with those blended family middle of life wedding scenarios, then you owe it to yourself to market in that space too. The making of the video is not that different of a process, as long as you have the eye for it and the creativity to create the kind of thing that the customer wants. And in your business, you may have some guys that do great with the younger weddings and some that do better with the older weddings. And so knowing, how to fill both of their calendars is great. So,
okay.
Yeah, you can have multiple niches, I guess, but I'm saying don't try to market to everybody with everything, because what will happen is nobody will hear you talking specifically to them. The customer or the prospect needs to think you're speaking directly at them.
Okay. You have to be relatable, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
That too. Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just trying to realize, I'm just trying to think of what we've been doing. And I think that what we've been doing is we just show all of our couples because I feel like we've attracted the right clients for us,
Mm-hmm.
and we just show everyone because we have the same attitude as the same character as our couples, and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if they're like a blended family or they're young.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that all of our couples are the same.
Right. Well, and that's great. I'm not saying you should necessarily not showcase the ones that don't fit right inside the box, but when you decide to run ads, I'm just saying run a different ad to the older crowd than to the younger crowd. If the ad is promoting, I don't know, the party aspect of things or the youthfulness, and frankly, you're aiming for a different audience there. But then you can bring everybody back to the same homepage on the web, which is your sales page. You know, if you want a wedding, you're going to get this, and this, or whatever it is. But you want to the purpose of the advertising is to catch their attention and say, yes, this is the right lead for me to follow, the right avenue for me to go down.
Okay, this is great. I love it. So, okay, now let's go back to your program because I've always wondered, whenever people have programs or workshops like these, what is the one thing that your program did to one of your clients that you didn't expect? Is there anything like that? Do you have a story about that?
A couple of them. One of them is, in a couple of different instances, I've had clients of mine who I worked with in the coaching and in the program who came in wanting to get a job or a better job or more jobs. And in a couple of these instances, what they ended up doing was making their own job, starting their own business, or essentially owning that they are able to have their own business and coming at their creative work. One's a magician, one is a screenwriter who then decided to produce some of her own material, and one is a podcaster actually who started her own podcast network once she figured out her niche and was able to find more people to fill that and built a business around it. Taking people in a direction they didn't originally think they wanted to go. But then when we start exploring really what's your purpose, what's your mission, why are you doing this? Then they start to look at it from all angles and see, oh, well, here's an opportunity that will give me a different kind of control over my life and let me have some flexibility and freedom and maybe be more fulfilling. So, life isn't worth living if you're just doing it to make a paycheck so you can go home and sit and watch the tube. If it's not fulfilling, there are other opportunities, other ways to make things happen. So, I love to help people sort of realize their potential, and sometimes it's not what they think it is.
Yeah, I love it when you, like me. I don't do it professionally. Like whenever I give advice, I always tell them take it with a grain of salt. But then when you find out that it unlocks their potential, I feel so happy instead of like, oh no.
Yeah.
Not.
It's interesting. I don't give advice either. As a lawyer, I give advice, but when I'm doing my work with these clients in this personal effectiveness program, I view my role as to hold up either mirrors so that people see what the outside world is seeing of them or what they're supposed to see, or windows, opportunities, and let them help guide them, I guess. But really, it's about let me get you out of your own way so you can make the choices that are going to take you in the direction that you need to go. And if I'm telling you should do this, well, first of all, people don't listen as well to that as when they hear themselves say, "Oh, I should do that." It's a different experience and they own it differently.
Okay. Oh man, that's so good. Okay. That's great. Like holding up a mirror and opening windows, showing them when the windows.
Let's face it. Back to the athletics metaphor. A coach will will show you how to do the exercise, or how to change the thing, or point out a flaw in your golf swing, for example, something like that. But ultimately, it comes down to the athlete practicing the right way. And so all we do as coaches is show you where there's an opportunity for improvement.
Yeah. So you're just unlocking the potential.
Yeah. It's up to the client or the customer to step up and do the work.
Okay. So my question now for you is, because we've been trying to get into coaching as well, or mentorship, or whatever it is. And I always think that, our market that we think is gonna pay, I don't think they're gonna pay us. What do you think about that? Because I always have this thing where I don't think they're gonna pay us the amount of money that we want to get paid for, because we have like so much information that we can help them, but I don't think they're gonna be able to. Is it just me because I'm a cheapskate?
I think what's going on is that you are not yet connected with with the real value and how to communicate that value to the customers. And it may be that the market you have in mind isn't really the right market. For, let's face it, not everybody is ready to pay high ticket for something. Just like we said with wedding video, not everybody wants the $20,000 wedding video package. Some people want the $1,000 wedding video package. They're never going to see the value in the higher ticket item. And so you have to find ways to communicate that value. And also, look, let's face it, aim for the right people who are going to recognize and need or want that value. So, but there's also what you're talking about is something I think we called, if I'm hearing you correctly, a little bit of something called imposter syndrome, where it's like, who am I to be teaching this, whatever. That's something that you mainly get over by pushing through it and doing the work and getting the validation or the confirmation when people do buy your thing. So if you're not putting it out there as an offer, then I think you're doing a disservice to the people who need what you have to offer. And so I'd say, give it a shot, pick a price, and a program and a promise. What is it you're going to do for them? What will they get from the program? And stand in it and own the value that you're giving. Would somebody, if I could teach you how to make a slot machine hit the jackpot every time you pull the lever,
I'll pay you.
Right. I could set the price at $100,000.
Yeah.
And you would see the value because, 100 pulls later, you're ahead.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a matter of, making sure people understand the total value of what you're offering. And you have to understand it first.
Yeah. So, because I was listening to a podcast this morning after my meditation, and she was talking about coaching. You should look at coaching or mentorship as like a luxury, because it is a luxury. Like, I don't know. So yeah, let me know what you think. Like, it is she's saying it's a luxury that, not everyone can afford someone to remind them that, hey, you need to do this today or whatever.
I understand the principle there. I think that we should look at it as an essential that few people avail themselves of. And once you do, you experience, assuming it's good coaching and you get good value from it, you never want to go back. You never want to stop having coaching because it gets you results. And once you have results, then you can afford it. It's one of those chicken and egg scenarios where sometimes you have to make the investment, even though the return is a ways down the road, because ultimately that return is going to be worthwhile. So as a salesman, as a marketer, you have to be able to convey the value and the opportunity that later return will bring if you make the investment now.
Okay, that's great. Oh man. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I wish I had when we started out here in Orange County, there's like 3 videographers, and now there's like 15,000 or something. But I wish when I
got an iPhone.
Yeah. So I wish when we started out, I wish I had a mentor that I could just pay, and just, hey, save me 8 7 8 years of trying to figure out what you need to do. And I wish we had that, to be
Yeah.
honest. I'd pay you top dollar for that, but here we are, and now I feel like I have so much information that I could give to people that we're ready. It's just like,
Yeah.
you're right, it's like an imposter syndrome. Like, are we are we hitting all the requirements of people whenever they're gonna pay us? So yeah, I feel like we are ready for that.
Yeah, and look, and there are different kinds of levels of service that you can provide, or levels of content that you can provide to somebody. Coaching might be sort of high up on the pyramid of, people pay more for coaches, but there may be, maybe you build a course, or you write a book, or you create just a blog or a podcast to teach people more about how to do the basics, so that they can take themselves up to the level where they can afford the next thing on your offering. You start with the well level liquor, and you build yourself up to top shelf.
Yeah. As long as you drink.
Terrible metaphor.
No, don't drink. Okay. So now I want to ask you, for people who, because the wedding industry, we're all small businesses, and most of the people are doing this freelance, and they have a day job and they work on the weekends. What's the best advice you could give to someone who is 50-50 on going all in on the business, like full time?
Great question. Hard question. As somebody who's 50-50 in the coaching and product space, as well as my law practice, I recognize how hard it is to give up a steady paying, earning, an income for something that's sort of more speculative. But you eventually you have to decide, okay, I trust myself. I know I'm able to make a go of this business, and you sort of have to take that leap. They say leap and the net will appear. That said, if you're still in a growing, building, learning phase, and you haven't developed systems and processes that make it sort of automatic, so you can be the person who works on the business that we talked about before, maybe you're not quite ready to make the leap. The stability of having that paycheck could be, what you need just to sort of be able to confidently grow the business slowly at its own pace. What I'll say is that it doesn't always have to be an all or nothing leap into no job at all. Depending on your work, of course, you might be able to switch to a 4-day a week, 10-hour schedule, or maybe just 4 days of 8 hours, so you reduce your workload and open up some time another day of the week for your other business, and you sort of gradually move into it. Be flexible, be creative about how you do things. Maybe the other thing is you work half days, so you go down to a part-time job, and then focus on your other business on a more intensive level. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, and it doesn't have to look. If you're not deciding, that's a decision as well. If you're just hanging out doing both because, well, it's easy and I don't have to pull my hair out deciding whether to quit, then you've decided not to decide. And you just have to get to a point where you're ready to make that commitment. Owning your own business is very challenging. Let's be honest about it. But it's also extraordinarily rewarding. You're in control of your destiny, and you're building something that you can either sell or hand off to your children, or that can bring you a passive income when you're ready to retire. If you still own the business, you just put employees in to do the work, you got profits coming in. So there's a lot of value to that, and better to be the owner than the worker bee in my view.
Okay, high risk, high reward, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, for those who are still in limbo, not going all full time,
Yep.
what? Because having a business, you have to go through all these legal stuff. If you don't have a business and you're running a business, how do they stay? Just like a brief, since this is your forte,
Yeah.
what advice can you give them to stay legal and safe, protected?
Okay. Well, the good news is you don't have to start a corporation or a limited liability company or anything like that The one thing is, if you're working with other co-owners, then you automatically have formed a partnership, and so there may be reasons why it's better to have the limited liability company or corporation, just so that you have clarity about who owns what and how you divide things and those kinds of things. But to be a solo business owner, you don't have to form an entity. You don't have to do anything. It's a good idea to open a bank account for the business so you keep your personal and your business things separate, and you run all your expenses through the business account so that it's easy to track and so on. But really, lots of people own their own businesses and don't ever form a corporation or an LLC. Now, in businesses where you're going out to other people's locations and performing a service and entering into contracts with people and all those kinds of things, there may be good reason why you want to get some insurance, because if you get sued, you don't want your house, your car, your personal assets to be exposed to liability. Now, forming an LLC or a corporation is another way of setting up a barrier or a wall between your personal and your business stuff. And so it is a good idea, but make sure your business is generating some revenue before you do that, because there's an expense associated with starting the company, and there's the annual operating expense, not to mention taxes, that the company pays. Here in California, every company pays a minimum of $800 in annual franchise tax. And so if you're not generating a reasonable profit beyond those $800, don't do it yet. You gotta make judgment calls about this. But insurance can substitute for the shield of the LLC, at least for a while. The other advantages to the LLC is you can bring in outside capital if you need an investor. You have a little street credibility with an LLC, and you can manage the capital and ownership and management structure of the business inside the operating agreement or the bylaws of the company, which when you're a solo, it's a little harder to be focused on the business when you don't separate things very much. So,
okay.
But the good news is you don't have to do any of it right up front. You can start up and fly by the seat of your pants for a little while. It's not the best advice that you could get, because there is some risk and exposure in the video production business. You have general liability risk. People could trip over your tripod or your cables or your cases that are hidden, whatever, and somebody breaks their nose, and now you've got a problem. But also you have the content related liability. You might use a piece of music that you didn't have permission to, or show a photo or a I don't know, capture somebody in a moment that they would not be proud to have visible to all their friends and family. And then you get into privacy questions, things like that. So having a game plan and some insurance to protect you when that person makes a claim is another kind of thing that you want to think about. It's called errors and omissions insurance.
Okay, that's my fear every day: hitting someone on the head with a tripod and getting sued for music licensing issues.
Right.
But I'm glad that was my last question for you, because I feel like it's just exactly what people need to hear, because I've never thought of asking people that, because not everyone's like a full-on business, and I love that the way you answered it.
Good.
So for now, that was my last question. Any last words for people who are listening and watching right now?
Well, yes, let me one thing I would like to say to anybody who is getting into a business, and let's face it, if you are expecting to be paid for work that you do, that's business, whether you think of it as a business or not. So what I want to say is, get your ducks in a row. Think about it like a business, and at least make some decisions about whether to form a company, whether to get insurance, whether and how to hire employees, and make sure if you're hiring employees, you've got a whole other slate of legal issues that you have to think about. So you want to work with a payroll company and make sure you're doing it by the numbers there as much as possible, and use good contracts. One of the things I hate to hear is someone calls me up on the phone and says, I have a problem. I say, well, what does the contract say? Oh, we didn't have a contract. It was a handshake deal.
Oh my gosh.
It's a nightmare scenario, right?
Yeah.
And if you're serious about what you're doing, you use a contract, even if it's just an email that says, here's what I will do, and the payment will be this. Do you agree? When they reply back, you've got a contract. Not the best one, but it'll do the job. So taking a business-like approach to business is something that a creative and artist type people have a hard time doing, and it's the most important thing they can do.
Taking a business approach to business. That's great. Oh my gosh. So, okay, now I would love it if you tell the listeners and the viewers how they can reach you and if you have anything coming up right now.
Okay, so let me start over. Well, it's Gordon Firemark, FIREMARK.com will take you to my law practice webpage. That's mainly the entertainment and media law end of things. And GordonFiremark.com is where I house everything else that I do. And if you're interested in this 7 strategies of successful creative people webinar, I will be doing that again very shortly, and you can sign up for a waiting list to be notified about that if you head over to GordonFiremark.com/7 success strategies, all one word, 7 success strategies. That will get you onto the waiting list for the webinar, and I hope you'll join me.
The reason why people succeed in life is because they give more than what they take, and you are one of the perfect examples of that. So thank you so much for obliging me for this interview. I'm a huge fan, and the best of luck to you.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a lot of fun, and I thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That's the end of another great episode. I hope you picked something up from our guest. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out by emailing me at weddingbossness@gmail.com. I know there's so much information that was provided today, so be sure to check out the show notes for the links down below. Special thanks to our guest for today, and don't forget to visit their site after this episode. Thanks for listening. Until we meet again.